Would you sell an organ from your body to save someone you love? I did. I sold my kidney for $300,000 to save my brother from cancer. He recovered, survived, and started a family. But 10 years later, when I inherited $5 million from my grandfather, that same brother tried to have me committed to a psychiatric hospital to steal my inheritance. Subscribe to the channel, because today I'll tell you how I uncovered this diabolical plan and how I got revenge in a way he'll never forget. But before I continue sharing my story and how it went, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know where you're coming from. My name is Paulo, I'm 35 years old, and for a long time I believed that family was sacred, that a blood brother would never betray you, that unconditional love existed. Today I know I was wrong, completely wrong. When my brother Gabriel was diagnosed with cancer at 20, I was 25. We were orphans, raised by our grandfather. Treatment would have cost 300,000 reais, money we didn't have. The doctor was blunt. Without treatment, Gabriel had only a few months to live. At that moment, I didn't think twice. I sold my kidney on the black market. Yes, you heard right. I entered a dangerous and illegal world, risking my life. But he was my brother. He was all I had left of my family. The surgery was performed under precarious conditions. I nearly died from complications, but I managed to get the $300,000. Gabriel underwent treatment, recovered, got married, and had children. He built the life I made possible. For 10 years, he never mentioned my sacrifice. He never thanked me. He treated it as if it were something I should have done, as if it were my obligation. But my brother's true nature only emerged when our grandfather died and left me a $5 million inheritance. It was then that I discovered who Gabriel really was. And it was then that my life turned into a nightmare I never imagined I would experience. What happened after this inheritance made me question everything I believed about family, loyalty, and gratitude. It made me realize that sometimes the greatest enemy is in your own home. It was a Tuesday in March when Gabriel returned home, pale-faced and carrying an envelope. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when he sat down at the table without saying a word. Silence hung heavy in the air. "Paulo, I have something to tell you," she said in a trembling voice. When she opened the envelope and showed me the test results, I felt the ground sink from under me. Cancer. Advanced stage. The doctor had been clear. Without immediate treatment, she had 6 months to live at most. Our grandfather was in the living room watching television, unaware of the bomb that had exploded in the kitchen. Gabriel squeezed my hand tightly. "Don't tell Grandpa yet. I need to process the situation first." I stayed up all night researching my brother's type of cancer. I read everything I could find. The cure existed, it was effective, but it cost a fortune. $200,000 for specialized chemotherapy, $100,000 for the experimental surgery that could have saved his life. The next morning I went to the bank. Our joint account held exactly $3,247. The salary we earned working in a small workshop barely covered our basic expenses. Our grandfather received only a minimal pension. "Gabriel, we'll find that money," I'd promised him that morning. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "What, Paulo? Where are we going to get $300,000? I started looking for loans. The banks flatly refused. The loan sharks wanted impossible interest rates and our apartment as collateral. I tried selling everything of value, the motorcycle, the furniture, even the tools from the workshop where we worked. It was then that an acquaintance from the workshop, named Marcos, called me for a private conversation. "Paulo, I know you're desperate. I know a way to make money quickly. A lot of money." Marcos told me about the black market for organs. He said he knew people who had paid up to $350,000 for a healthy kidney. At first I thought he was joking. Then I realized he was serious. "It's dangerous, I won't lie. But if you really want to save your brother..." He handed me a business card with just a phone number. "Think about it. But if you decide, call this number." That night, I held the business card in my hand for hours. Gabriel was asleep in the next room, unaware of that conversation. I was 25, healthy and strong. I could live perfectly well with only one kidney. At 3 in the morning, I picked up the phone and dialed a number. The voice on the other end was calm and professional. "If you're calling this number, it's because you have something we're interested in." No introductions, no names, just business-related information. I arranged to meet the next day at a discreet bar downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, nervous and sweaty. A man in a dark suit approached my table. "Paulo," he sat down and got straight to the point. "Healthy kidney, 28 years old, no underlying health condition. I can offer $320,000, half before surgery, half after." My head was spinning. It was more money than I'd ever dreamed of. "What are the risks?" I asked. He smiled smugly. "The same as any surgery. But our doctor is competent. He's done it dozens of times." He showed me photos of a seemingly ordinary clinic. Everything very clean, very safe. I returned home with 1,000 thoughts racing through my head. Gabriel was in the living room, weaker than the day before. Cancer wouldn't wait. As the days passed, the odds diminished. That evening, I called Gabriel's doctor. "Doctor, how much time do you have left if you don't start therapy?" The response was devastating. 8 weeks tops, Paulo. I'm sorry to be so blunt. 8 weeks. It was all Gabriel had. It was all I had to make the most important decision of my life. The next day, I called the man in the suit and tie. "I accept." He scheduled my tests for the following week, a complete series of tests to ensure my kidney was suitable for transplant. I spent 5 days undergoing tests in various laboratories: blood, urine, CT scans, MRIs. I didn't say anything to Gabriel. I made up excuses for my absences from work. When the results were in, the man called me. "Congratulations! You have a golden kidney. The buyer has approved it." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Buyer. That was what they called the person who would receive my organ. The surgery was scheduled for Friday. Thursday evening, I was sitting with Gabriel on the balcony of our apartment. The stars shone brightly in the dark sky. "Dude, I found a way to get the money for your treatment," I told him. Gabriel turned to me, his eyes shining. "Really? How?" "I've arranged a special loan. We'll start your treatment on Monday." I lied, but it was a necessary lie. He couldn't have known what I was about to do. Gabriel hugged me tightly. "You're the best brother in the world, Paulo. I promise I'll pay you back every penny when I'm healed." Promises. How different they are after 10 years. The clinic was located in an industrial area of the city. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Inside, it was modern and well-equipped, but with a gloomy atmosphere that sent shivers down my spine. Dr. Henrique welcomed me into his office. He was a man in his 50s, with gray hair and steady hands. "I've performed over 100 transplants. You're in good hands." He explained the entire procedure to me. The surgery would last about 3 hours. I would be hospitalized for 2 days for observation. "It's important that someone you trust comes to pick you up. You won't be able to drive or exercise for 2 weeks. I made up a story for Gabriel. I told him I needed to undergo minor surgery to remove a cyst. He was so focused on his own problems that he didn't even ask himself what he was thinking. On the morning of the surgery, I arrived at the clinic at 6. A nurse escorted me to a simple room. A hard mattress, white walls, and a strong smell of disinfectant. At 7:30, they gave me anesthesia. I remember the feeling of floating, and then everything went black. I woke up with a stabbing pain in my right side. It felt like someone had stabbed me in the ribs. I tried to move and screamed in pain. Calm down, calm down. The operation was a success," said a female voice. It was the nurse, but something was wrong. I had a metallic taste in my mouth and terrible dizziness. Hours later, Dr. Henrique appeared with a worried expression. "Paulo, we had some complications during the operation. You lost more blood than expected. We'll have to keep you here for a few more days." In the early hours of the morning, my condition worsened. High fever, vomiting, uncontrollable pain. I was dying, and I knew it. I thought of Gabriel, of the money he would receive even if I died, of the treatments that could save him. On the 3rd day, I was finally able to sit up in bed. Dr. Henrique showed me the money, $160,000 in cash. "You'll receive the other half when you're fully recovered." I called Gabriel from a payphone near the clinic. "Dude, I have the money. You can start treatment today." I heard him crying on the other end. "Paulo, you're a miracle in my life. How did you make so much money so quickly?" "It doesn't matter now. What matters is that you'll get better." I returned home a week later, thinner, weaker, but alive. Gabriel had already started chemotherapy. Seeing the hope in his eyes made all that pain worth it. For 6 months, I showed up for every appointment, every test, every treatment session. Gabriel gradually recovered. The cancer was losing its battle. I never imagined that years later, the same person I had risked his life to save would try to destroy me completely. In December of that year, Dr. Martinez gave us the news that would change everything. "Gabriel, you're cured. The cancer has been completely eliminated." I remember the tight hug we shared in the office, the tears of relief, the feeling of victory. Gabriel recovered quickly. Within a few months, he returned to work, school, and began dating a college friend. His life blossomed like a plant after the rain. Things were different for me. The surgery had left consequences the doctors hadn't mentioned. Constant pain in the kidney area, excessive fatigue, and digestive problems. I needed regular checkups and expensive medications. In the first few months after my recovery, Gabriel would talk to me about the sacrifice I'd made. "Dude, when I get a better job, I'll give you every penny back." But as time went on, these conversations became rarer. A year later, he married Amanda. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. In his speech, he thanked God, his doctors, and his friends. He didn't mention my sacrifice even once. "Gabriel, Don't you want to tell us how you got the money for your treatment? I asked him after the party. He looked at me angrily. Paulo, that's in the past. People don't need to know all the details. It was the first time I'd noticed anything strange in his behavior, as if my sacrifice were embarrassing, something to forget. 2 years later, her first child, Miguel, was born. I was the proud uncle, always present, always available. When Amanda needed someone to take care of the baby, I was there. When they needed money for diapers or medicine, I lent it to them without asking questions. Gabriel found a job at a technology company. The salary was good, and his life was stabilizing. Still, he never mentioned the debt. He never offered to repay a single cent of what I'd spent on his care. Are you still taking those kidney medications? He asked me once, almost irritably, as if my health problem were a nuisance. Gabriel, I'll be taking this for the rest of my life. These are the side effects of the surgery. What surgery? I was speechless. He had completely forgotten about it, or at least pretended to. The cyst I'd invented had become the official truth in his mind. As the years passed, our relationship cooled. Gabriel built a life, a family, a career. I stayed in the workshop, living in the same small apartment, caring for our elderly grandfather. During family gatherings, Gabriel would talk about his plans, his successes, his dreams. I became the older brother who had no ambitions, who was settling down in life. I never imagined that this silence about my sacrifice was just the beginning of something much. Our grandfather died one September morning, sleeping peacefully in his bed. He was 89 years old and had lived a peaceful life. I cared for him for the last 5 years, attending his doctor's appointments, administering his medications, and keeping him company during the long afternoons. Gabriel showed up every now and then, always in a hurry, always with excuses. Paulo, you understand, right? I have a family, a job. I understood. I always understood. 2 weeks after the funeral, the family lawyer called us for the reading of the will. Gabriel arrived late, apologizing for the traffic. Amanda arrived with us, carrying Miguel in her arms. Dr. Roberto, the lawyer, opened the sealed envelope. Your grandfather was very clear in his instructions. He began to read slowly. I leave my grandson Gabriel the sum of $200,000, an amount I believe is fair to help him and his family. Gabriel smiled with satisfaction. 200,000 reais was a lot of money. And to my nephew Paulo, Dr. Roberto continued, who dedicated the last years of his life to caring for me with love and patience, I leave the rest of my assets, my beach house, investments, and other assets totaling 4,800,000. He says. The office was completely silent. Amanda dropped Miguel's pacifier. Gabriel turned as white as a sheet. It must be a mistake, Gabriel said, his voice shaking. My grandfather couldn't have left Paulo almost 5 million. Dr. Roberto showed him the will. It's all here, signed and certified. Your grandfather was very specific. Paulo will receive the beach house worth $1.2 million plus $3.6 million in investments. I was shocked. I never imagined my grandfather had so much money saved. He had always lived simply, never flaunting his wealth. There's a personal letter for you, Paulo, the lawyer said, handing me an envelope. I opened it with trembling hands. My grandfather's handwriting was clear. My dear grandson, you were the only one there for me when I needed you. You sacrificed your youth to take care of me. This money is my acknowledgement of your true love. Gabriel stood up abruptly. It's not fair. Paulo doesn't need all that money. I have a family to support. His voice was altered, different. Gabriel, calm down. I tried to soothe him. We can talk about this at home. What are we talking about? You've been manipulating Grandpa these past few years. You've taken advantage of his old age and influenced him against me. Amanda grabbed his arm. Gabriel, let's go home. This isn't the place or the time. We left the office in a tense silence. In the parking lot, Gabriel looked at me with an anger I'd never seen before. Paulo, this can't go on. At that moment, my life as a millionaire had begun. But with it, my nightmare. In the days following the reading of the will, I tried to reconcile with Gabriel. I called him several times, texted him, and even went to his house. Amanda always responded with excuses. He's not here. He went to work. He's busy with Miguel. A week later, he finally answered the phone. Gabriel, we need to talk. We're brothers, we can work this out. Solves what, Paulo? You have 5 million left that should have been divided equally. His voice was cold, calculating. Gabriel, I didn't ask for this. Grandpa made this decision. Of course you did. You spent 5 years filling the old man's head with hatred, telling him I didn't come to see him, that I didn't care. It wasn't true. Our grandfather never criticized Gabriel in front of me. He always said he understood the frenzy of modern life. Do you want me to split the inheritance? I asked directly. That would be fair. 50% each. Gabriel, you're forgetting something. 10 years ago, I spent 320,000 reais to save your life. Money you've never repaid or mentioned. The silence on the other end of the line lasted for long seconds. What money? You said it was a special loan for my treatment. It was, but I paid the price. With my body. What are you talking about, Paulo? What's the story? I realized he didn't actually know. Or maybe he was pretending very well not to know. Gabriel, I sold my kidney to get money for your treatment. I underwent dangerous surgery, nearly died, and am still suffering the effects. You're making this up now, so you don't have to share the inheritance. I have proof, Gabriel. I have all the medical tests, the prescriptions for the medications I've been taking to date. Even if that were true, it was your choice. No one asked you to do it. I hung up the phone, shaking with rage. How could the man I'd saved, the man I'd raised with me, be so cold, so ungrateful? Over the next few days, I started receiving strange phone calls. People asked me about my mental state, if I was acting normal. I thought it was strange, but I didn't pay much attention. Amanda called me one afternoon. Paulo, I'm worried about Gabriel. He's very stressed, and he's saying strange things about your mental health issues. Psychological problems? He said you've been making up stories about selling a kidney, that you're hallucinating. He said the inheritance has left you a little unbalanced. My blood ran cold. Gabriel told everyone I was crazy. Amanda, do you believe this? I don't know, Paulo. Did you really sell a kidney? At that moment, I realized my brother had started a war, and I didn't even know I'd been attacked. 3 months after the inheritance, my life had become a silent hell. Gabriel told the entire family that I was mentally unstable. Distant cousins called me worried. Neighbors regarded me with suspicion. Paulo's making up a story about selling an organ, I overheard him say to my cousin Carla at a birthday party. It's typical of someone who doesn't know how to manage money. The inheritance has gone to his head. I started receiving visits from social workers. They asked me if I was eating properly, if I was taking medications, if I needed psychological support. Gabriel had filed anonymous complaints about my erratic behavior. It was a Tuesday when I received a call that would change everything. Mr. Paulo, this is Roberto, a nurse at Clínica Esperança. I need to speak to you urgently. We agreed to meet at a discreet bar. Roberto was a nervous man in his 40s, constantly looking around. Mr. Paulo, I work at the psychiatric clinic where your brother wants to admit you. He's already filled out all the paperwork and hired a lawyer. Your admission is scheduled for Friday. I felt the world spinning around me. What do you mean? You can't force me into confinement. Yes, you can. He obtained 3 false medical reports that prove you pose a danger to yourself and others. With these reports, he can assume legal guardianship for you. Roberto showed me a folder of documents. They contained false psychiatric reports, statements that I had threatened others, and fabricated accounts of my violent behavior. There's more, Mr. Paulo. I overheard you talking to your lawyer. As soon as he takes over your guardianship, he'll transfer the entire inheritance to your account. He said he's doing it to protect his assets. My brother had devised a plan to rob me and have me interned like a madman to take control of the 5 million reais. Why are you telling me this? I asked Roberto. Because I've seen this before. Families hospitalizing healthy relatives to steal inheritances. It's a crime, Mr. Paulo, and I don't want to be complicit. Roberto explained the plan to me in detail. Gabriel had bribed doctors, falsified documents, and even hired people to make false statements about me. He said you'll be hospitalized indefinitely. That will prove you're a social danger. I left that meeting knowing I had 2 days to act. My brother, the one I'd saved by selling my kidney, wanted to destroy me completely. But Gabriel had underestimated one thing. I was no longer the same Paulo I had been 10 years earlier. The experience of selling an organ on the black market taught me that sometimes you have to resort to extreme measures to survive. The time for revenge had come, and it would be surgical. I spent Wednesday and Thursday finalizing my defense plan. First, I sought out a trusted criminal defense attorney. Dr. Fernando reviewed the documents Roberto had provided me. Paulo, this is serious. Attempted illegal admission, document forgery, attempted fraud. Your brother faces 5 to 12 years in prison. But I wanted more than legal justice. I wanted Gabriel to experience firsthand what betrayal means. I bought a small invisible recorder. Thursday evening, I called Gabriel, feigning desperation. Brother, I need to see you. I feel really bad, a little confused. I think you were right about me needing help. Gabriel agreed immediately. We agreed to meet the next day, Friday morning, at the apartment where we grew up. Perfect, Paulo. I'll take you to a place where you'll get all the help you need. On Friday morning, Gabriel arrived promptly at 9 o'clock. He was carrying documents in a briefcase and had a fake smile on his face. Paulo, I'm glad you recognize that you need treatment. I activated the recorder in my pocket. Gabriel, before we go, I need to clarify something. Do you really think I made up the story about the kidney? Paulo, you're sick. Sick people make things up. What if I proved it was true? Would you change your mind about committing me? Gabriel grew impatient. Let's go. The doctor is waiting for us. That's when I set my trap. Gabriel, tell me one thing. If you manage to take over my guardianship, what will happen to my inheritance? I will manage your money for your own good. How to manage? Gabriel relaxed, assuming I'd accepted the hospital stay. Paulo, you don't know how to manage 5 million. I'll invest it wisely. I'll make it grow. When you get better, you'll thank me. And how much of the inheritance do you intend to use for my care? The necessary. And the rest? The others will be safe with me. After all, I am your brother, your only relative. I continued to provoke him. Gabriel, convinced I was crazy, began to reveal the details of his plan, how he had bribed the doctors, how he had falsified the reports, how he intended to keep me hospitalized for years. You've never been very smart, Paulo. You've always been the silly brother who would do anything for others. The last sentence I needed. Gabriel, do you remember when you sold your kidney to pay for my cancer treatment? My kidney? Paulo, you're the one who says you sold your kidney. That's right. I sold my kidney to save your life, and now you want to rob me for it. Gabriel blushed. He had been wrong in his own lie, and confirmed everything he had recorded. The following Monday, I handed over the registration to the civil police. Gabriel was caught red-handed trying to use fake documents. His lawyer and the corrupt doctors were all charged. The recording was leaked online. In 3 days, Gabriel lost his job, his credibility, and his friends. Amanda filed for divorce and took Miguel away. The entire family learned the truth about my sacrifice and his ingratitude. Today, Gabriel is serving an 8-year sentence for forgery, attempted fraud, and kidnapping. I lost a brother, but I saved my life and my dignity. With my inheritance, I created a foundation that helps cancer patients who can't afford treatment. We've already saved over 100 lives. Every person cured is my revenge against Gabriel's ingratitude. I've learned that family isn't made up of those who share your blood, but of those who shed their blood for you. And sometimes, sadly, these two things don't coincide in the same person. If this story touched you, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it in your stories. Your interaction motivates me to continue telling true stories that deserve to be heard.